Hey guys, welcome to the Touchdown Table. I'm Ryan, that's Tyler, that's Jordan, and this is going to be quite an interesting video for a couple reasons because this is about the final hire of the head coaching cycle. The Houston Texans have hired David Culley to be their head coach. Bit of a surprise to, I think, everyone at the Touchdown Table and probably some people around the league, but in case you're a first-time watcher of the Touchdown Table, I am a Texans fan, so I'll have a lot to say throughout the video. I've had a lot of opinions on this. This is a fairly raw reaction. We probably just found out about this, half hour, 45 minutes ago. So we'll all have a lot to say, but me especially, it hits close to home because it's my team. But, the floor is open, so who has the first comments?
I'll ask you this question in just a second about your initial reaction. But my initial reaction was I got the notification on my phone from the NFL app that the Texans were hiring a new head coach, and I saw David Culley, and I'd never heard his name before, and Tyler was sitting next to me. I just started laughing out loud, and Tyler's like, "Oh, what's so funny? What are you laughing at?" And
I didn't say a word. I was silent as you were laughing.
Well, anyway, I show him my phone, and he's like, what am I supposed to be looking at? Oh, the notification? Who is that? Anyway, so that's what Tyler talks about. You hear it in just a second here. But I was laughing out loud. I was shocked. Now, this guy, he might get ripped a bit in this video because, as you're going to find out, Ryan's not particularly pleased with this, but he has had a history in the NFL, so I'll give you that really briefly. According to Wikipedia, he was...
That's not the most
Yeah, but, he previously worked on Andy Reid's staff He previously worked on Andy Reid's staff in Philadelphia for more than a decade. Then he was the Chiefs' assistant head coach and wide receivers coach with Andy Reid, obviously, again. And then in 2019, he went to the Baltimore Ravens to be the assistant head coach and wide receivers coach / passing game coordinator. And now he is obviously the head coach of the Houston Texans. So, Ryan, I said I asked you this question.
Yes.
Initial reaction, what was it?
My initial reaction was just kind of shock. I didn't really have, a strong feeling as far as, not liking it or loving it. It was just kind of confusion because I really did not expect this. I thought it was going to be Eric Bieniemy going to Houston, and I thought if not him, maybe Leslie Frazier from Buffalo. So this does come as quite a bit of a surprise, but it is the Houston Texans. So is it really a surprise when you think about it? No, it's not. So, again, this is still very raw, and I have a lot of thoughts, but I'd say if I could describe the initial reaction in one word, it'd just be shock, because I did not see this coming. I knew that they interviewed him a second time, and I knew that it went well, but it just really escalated into
So you didn't know who he was?
I knew who he was once his name started popping up in the Texans head coach conversation, but before that, no. So over the past few weeks, yes, I heard the name, but other than that, no clue of who he was.
Jordan kind of explained my reaction, but Ryan, you kind of also hit on something I was saying. It's that you were mentioning as you were talking. That's what the Texans do, and that was my reaction to it. I was like, am I surprised? No, because this is what the Texans organization has been doing. This could end out to be a great hire. And Joe Judge was someone we had no idea who he was last year, and he's been good so far.
Right.
For the Giants. It's not like they were expected to go to the playoffs or anything this year. So they got really close if you think about it. Don't think about it too much because then you realize they went 6-10.
Yeah.
But that was just my kind of reaction to it. Ryan, I know he was very disappointed with this because he was constantly saying the Texans are going to get Eric Bieniemy. He's shown me, photoshops of Deshaun Watson and Eric Bieniemy standing next to each other and in their Texans gear. And I was like,
they were pretty
don't give your hopes up. You're watching the Texans here. Mm-hmm. It is shocking to say, before Ryan takes over this some more, that neither Bieniemy or Dable, who are probably the most two sought-out coaches, or you would think, going into this offseason, they're both going to be going back to their teams with no more head coaching jobs up to go. I'd assume both of them will get hired next year or at some point in the future. They both have the talent to do that. But it's just something weird to think about, but that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about David Culley.
Yeah, and Ryan, I'll butt in real quick before you go on your extra long rant, probably. But we talked about Eric Bieniemy, right? And he's been with the Chiefs, and he's been the offensive coordinator there, and he's done some really good stuff. It's a guy that Ryan wanted to see go to his Houston Texans. And in a sense, they kind of did somewhat of that because David Culley had coached with Andy Reid for such a long time. But also, you could have just hired Eric Bieniemy. Yeah. So that's just a point I wanted to throw out there. Ryan, I'm not sure where you're going to take this conversation. Take it anywhere your mind wants it to go. We'll butt in when necessary, but with that, just take it away. Let's dive deep into this mind of yours.
Right,
Raw Texans fan reaction.
I got my little segment here. this is great. But yeah, I mean, we've touched on it a lot, early in this video. Not really anything that I expected, but I want to be clear before I get into why this wasn't my first choice. I'm entering this whole new era of Texans football with an open mind. I am, excited just to have a head coach in the building. I mean, I'll watch his press conference again. I've never heard of the guy, so that's the reason maybe not like the hire, but that's also more motivation to say, okay, let's see what this guy is like. Let's see what people are saying about him. So to be clear, I am going into this with an open mind. He has my full support. I'm excited, like I said, for this new era. We will see what happens. It would not have been my first choice, and I am really surprised by it, but at the end of the day, if he's able to, solve this Deshaun Watson drama somehow and, get this, crazy organization somewhat back on the right track, I'll give him props for that, because it's the same thing when they hired the GM and Nick Caserio. I said probably wouldn't have been my first choice, but I'll judge him for what he does, enter it with an open mind. It's the same thing for David Culley. I'll have the exact same mentality. So to be clear, I'm not, saying, oh, we're going to go 0-17 and it's going to be horrible. I'm skeptical of the hire, and would not have been my first choice. But to be clear, I'm open-minded. I'm trying to be as optimistic as I can, and I'm, ready to learn about my team's new head coach and just see what he has to offer. But now, why I'm a little confused. I really think that, Eric Bieniemy to the Texans would have been a nice move. I think that, he could have potentially been able to solve the Deshaun Watson drama, or at least been, the most likely candidate that could, because Deshaun Watson supposedly wanted Eric Bieniemy to be hired to Houston, or at the very least interviewed, and they didn't even interview him until this drama started. I think also with that, but also with, other players in the Texans organization have spoken highly of Bieniemy. Current Chiefs players have spoken highly of Bieniemy. So I really thought that he was going to be the guy, and I thought that would be where things would go. But clearly they decided differently. I mean, some people have, said, maybe is it just they didn't want to wait? But, I mean, the regular season doesn't start till September. What does it matter if you hire your head coach February 8th or January 27th? I don't think it's, a big deal, but yeah, Bieniemy would have been my first choice. But with David Culley, going back to him, he was the Ravens assistant head coach, wide receiver coach, and passing game coordinator. When you think of the Ravens offense, you do not think of wide receivers or passing game. And their passing game was not great. Their wide receivers were not great. So that's another reason why this was confusing. It's not just because he wasn't one of the big names like Bieniemy or Dable. It's because the unit he worked with and specialized in wasn't all that good. So it makes you wonder, especially when you're the Texans, your offensive line, especially the interior, wasn't great. I think you're more of a passing team than a run team. So yes, he has experience with this realm, but it just didn't work in Baltimore that well. And I said this all the time when we talk about the Ravens on this channel. I'd say the Ravens are a one-dimensional offense. You know exactly what they're going to try and attack you with, because they didn't have that consistent passing game. They didn't have the elite wide receivers. So we'll see if that changes in Houston, but I'm just, really confused on why you'd say, I want the guy who worked with Baltimore's wide receivers and Baltimore's passing game. It just doesn't quite add up. Now, I know he has a lot of experience, and like I said, I hope for the best, obviously. I enter this with an open mind, but I really do think that Eric Bieniemy would have been, the best option, and maybe some other guys ahead of him as well, ahead of Culley, that is, in like my pecking order for head coaches. But anyway, that's not the issue. The issue is David Culley is now the head coach, and that's what it's going to be. So we don't know much about this guy other than what he did. So as far as, what I expect the Texans to look like on offense and on defense and what the coaching staff will look like, we don't know. Well, I'll obviously be watching the press conference whenever that is. It might have happened already by the time you're watching this, but those are my initial thoughts. I'm just most of all confused on why you'd say I want Baltimore's wide receiver guy. Yeah, the guy who coached, that great passing attack that ranked towards the bottom of the league. So just more confusion
at
to
the
what's
bottom.
been. Was it? Was it?
Yeah.
Yards per game was at the bottom.
Yeah, yards per game, but they also didn't pass the ball too much. But it's just a little strange. But that's something you say a lot about the Texans.
Yeah, and I want to continue on Baltimore just for a bit of a second and kind of defend Culley a bit, because of course he is labeled as the wide receivers coach and passing game coordinator, but he also has an assistant head coach to him, so that could mean he's doing more things with the team besides just wide receivers and passing game. He's been around football for a long time, and it seems like he does know his stuff. So we weren't in the interview room. We don't know exactly what he's done. As we mentioned, we barely know who this guy was before the Texans hired him, so we don't know if he's been doing other stuff besides just working with wide receivers and being a passing game coordinator for a team that, as Ryan perfectly mentioned, has not had a great passing game. But also, just to now go against him, is that when we heard about Baltimore's offense, we heard about Greg Roman.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear one thing about David Culley. Maybe someone had out there, but I did not during their success last year when Lamar won the MVP and their somewhat success towards the end of this year's season. Not once did I hear his name. I saw Greg Roman on the TV sometimes. They'd show him. Of course, they'd show Harbaugh, the head coach of the Ravens. But I not once saw David Culley. Of course, at that time, he was a wide receivers coach and a passing game coordinator, so he's not going to get too much media attention, but he's getting hired to a team, so he must have been doing something right. Mm-hmm. We just weren't being shown it. So it's hard to analyze this because we don't know much about him. He could be great. He could be not so great. He could be a whole passing guy with a terrible team. He could be a guy who was really just an offensive guru with that team and was really helping out Greg Roman in that offensive scheme that they built there in Baltimore. So we don't know. We'll see. And Ryan, I hope the best for you because I can tell it's been tough on you.
Yes, it has. But again, we got to wait and see, what kind of staff he assembles, how they draft under him, and what type of players he creates out of the team. So again, I'm not saying it's definitely going to be bad. It's just a little bit of a surprise, not what I quite would have done. But again, I'm entering with an open mind, and I'm, trying to be optimistic, and hopefully I get a good impression from the press conference.
And sorry, Tyler, I saw you were going to go, but I've said this before with head coaches. It's not the end-all, be-all at the end of the day because I think you have to have really good coordinators for a team. So if your head coach is a guy who could really work with both sides of the ball, knows the game of football really well, I think that's really good. And I think that's very possible with David Culley. But then the Texans have to go out and get themselves a good offensive coordinator and a good defensive coordinator. And by the way, is your interim coach, is he staying with you guys?
Oh, you're asking about Cornell?
Yeah.
I think he'll stay within the organization. Yes.
You think he'll be defensive coordinator or something?
We do have a void at defensive coordinator, so that's actually interesting. Yeah. I mean, he could return to that position, or we could go outside the organization. It's probably going to be up to David Culley.
I just thought that was interesting because I do think that he actually had some success when he was the interim coach. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so Tyler, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Well, that's kind of unfortunate because I was going to say that exact point that you just made there. It's hard to talk when you're with Jordan at the table here. But luckily, I did have one more thing to say that kind of stemmed off from what you were saying. But with the Texans, I'm sure what they were looking at when they were looking to hire their next head coach was leadership. They're kind of getting a sense that Deshaun Watson could be gone next year and they could be having to go into some sort of rebuild. So they got to understand we got to get someone in here that can build us a culture. And I'm not sure what players would say about David Culley, but they must have got the sense that he was a good leader. He was assistant head coach, which gives me a good sense that he was a good leader.
You saw like the Lions head coach.
Yeah, and like Jordan said, Roman was calling the plays there. I know he was a passing coordinator, so he had stuff to do with it. I think they would, I don't know for sure if they would end up going and getting out offensive coordinator, but we're going to have to find that out. Defensively, they're gonna have to find someone as well. So it's looking like Watson is going to be gone, and they're going to kind of build something new here. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then that leads into that subject with David Culley. Is this something that could save Watson with the Texans? I don't think so.
Yeah, unless they somehow consulted him before this hire, and he said, this will keep me here, which, I mean, I doubt. Knowing their ownership, he probably didn't even find out from the ownership. He probably found out from social media. That's where he found out about the GM hire and the Hopkins
They had to have told, at least now they had to have. They got to realize they're on a short leash with Deshaun Watson.
If there is a
we got to tell them. We got to tell them.
He might already be
Look, they definitely should have realized that, but they've been dumb before.
I would bet what would happen is they went to Deshaun and said, hey, this is who we're going to hire. What do you think? And he probably said, I don't care or something.
I don't care.
It could be. This could be, a last-ditch effort to save Deshaun Watson and keep him in Houston. Or it could be, okay, Deshaun, maybe they know something that the media doesn't, and maybe Deshaun to the Texans next year just isn't going to happen, and he will be traded, and they just hired who they thought was the best, knowing that Watson wouldn't be there. That could have happened. But I wonder, is there any correlation? Do they think that this hire will or at least might keep Watson in Houston, or have they already given up on that and are already talking about trading him? Again, we're not in that.
I'm sure he'll be asked that question.
Yeah, he will. Oh my gosh, I'm wondering, have you spoken with Deshaun? What about this? What do you think of this? It's going to be an interesting press conference that I am excited to watch. But yeah, I mean, it does segue into the Watson drama nicely because you wonder, will this do anything? This wasn't either of the candidates Watson wanted them to interview. Yeah, it was Bieniemy who wanted them to interview, which they did, but they didn't hire him. And he also wanted them to interview Robert Saleh, who went to the Jets, and they did not even interview him.
Yeah, and both of those guys show leadership, and that's what the team needs. And it's weird to think they didn't interview either of those guys until it was really too late. But I think we get the sense here that David Culley was hired because of his leadership skills. If they want an offensive guy, they probably wouldn't have got the Ravens passing coordinator. That's just the sense we're getting at the table. There's still
I sure hope that's why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's still so much to unfold here with this David Culley situation. And him being hired to the Texans. Congratulations to him, by the way, getting head coaching job.
We've ripped you, but you probably deserve it. You worked hard your whole career, and you get an opportunity. So
let's have some success.
Yeah, hopefully for Ryan's sake and for other Texans fans' sake, this move can work out.
I've never met a Texans fan besides you, by the way.
Well,
I feel like they're rare.
We live in Chicago.
You don't live near Houston.
Yeah, I know.
So it's not crazy.
I know, but I've met fans of other teams here. Like there's Panthers fans here, obviously Green Bay Packers fans.
Yeah.
I've met a lot of people with different teams that are their favorites. I've never met a Texans fan besides you, so I just thought that was an interesting thing to bring up.
Yeah,
they're also a newer team.
Yeah, that's another thing. They're the newest team in the NFL. But yeah, maybe you'll see.
It's been long enough for people to turn.
Maybe you'll see more of my kind.
Or maybe some of them will be dropping out after some of this stuff. But yeah, you've thought about it. No,
I can't do that.
He hasn't, but
cannot do it.
He's wanted to, but he's never actually, wanted to pull the trigger on it. Sure, he's felt bad, but he sticks with his team.
Of course.
And we stand by him for it.
Absolutely.
As one big table.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Texans are moving on from the good old days of maybe Deshaun Watson and on their success getting the playoffs multiple years in a row. And they're moving on to a new era here with David Culley as their hire. So that's good to see. We'll see if it works out. Thank you guys for watching this video. Let us know what you guys think about this hire in the comments below. Let us know what you thought about anything we said. Also, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel.
Like this video for Ryan.
Notification bell, yeah. It for one tier, or what? One like equals one smile from Ryan. I don't know.
Okay.
It's just science.
Yeah, it's just science.
I'll smile for you.
Just follow the facts. All right. So that's all we gotta say. With that, we'll see you guys later.
See ya.